welcome back, guys. It's late. I think it's like 11:30 at night. I'm kind of burning the midnight oil here. Anyways, let's go over a couple things real fast, all right? I'm working on the motor here. I'm going to show you a couple things. Let's see. So this is the engine case. As you see, it's all nice and clean. I cleaned up all the edges and everything for the sealant. I already put the pins in. These little guys right here, I took them out for the machine shop so I can have the case cleaned. I didn't want to lose them. These are my little dowel pins that actually locate and hold the bearing in place. I already got the crank and rods and everything all together. I cleaned up the other side of the case so far. Got everything wiped down, everything is good. And let's see, that's about it for right now. Let's talk about something real fast. So a lot of guys, people ask about different tricks and things like that. I'm gonna go over this real fast. So I got a new set of lifters because, as you guys saw before previously, the lifters were kind of hashed, right? Let me show you something and get over here in the light. Okay, so these, focus, really, these are the lifters for the engine, the camshaft lifters. And you see that little hole right there? That little hole right there is what supplies oil from right here. These are where the lifters go, right? And that little guy lines up in the oil galley down here. There's an oil galley that runs through here. So as you can see right here, the holes where the oil comes through, right? And that little hole that's in the lifter right there is the only thing that supplies oil to the cylinder heads on the engine. So what we're going to do here is we're going to take these lifters and we're going to put some slices right here in between these two, because this thing it's only in the oil galley getting oil through the lifter, I don't know, 80% of the time or something, or 80% of the time it's not in there. So this one lines up with it. So what we're going to do here is we're going to, hopefully this thing focuses, we're going to put some cuts in here at kind of an angle, because you want your lifter to spin the whole time it's in the case anyways. So we're going to cut right here, and then back here. And what that will allow, it will allow oil in the galley down there when it's fully seated to fill up this channel right here and push oil into the upper oiling ring that's up here in the lifter, right? So basically it's a little trick you can do to a Volkswagen to get a little more oil flow on the lifters that go out to the rocker arms and stuff, and it really does help. So we're gonna do that real fast. It's fast, right? And all you do really is you just take a real fine cutting tool like a Dremel or something like that, and you cut you cut 3 little slices in between those 2 chambers right there on your lifter, so that you can get more oil going to the cylinder heads and the rocker assembly and the valve springs and guides and stuff like that. So excuse me, we're going to go ahead and do that this evening, and I don't know, we're going to see how far along I get. I need to get this little motor buttoned up, guys. So I just have to bear down and get her done. So anyways, I will set you up here in a second. I'm gonna probably sit down and do this in a chair, and you guys can kind of follow along and see how I do this. Like I said, it's not crucial, it's not something you have to do, it's just a good thing to do for oiling purposes for an old engine. And then we'll get the crank laid in, hopefully get the cam in tonight, and get the engine sealed back up so it's all one assembly tonight. And then we'll move on to the pistons and piston rings and stuff, and I'll run you through that because I like to check the piston ring gap. They send it to you already assembled with the piston rings and everything already on the piston and the jug, and that's cool. A lot of guys, they just kind of put them together, but I like to check because there's supposed to be a little tiny space between the compression rings, and that space has to be open to a certain thousandths of an inch so that they don't ever touch. And we'll go over that in probably another video, because that's going to come next after this one. So anyways, let me get this thing set up here and get moving along, and let's get these lifters taken care of so we can drop this crank and cam and lifters and everything in this motor and get her sealed up. What do you say? Let's get after it. All right, guys. Now I'm not going to walk you through all of them, because, you know, there's 8 of them, but I'll give you kind of a rundown of what we're doing here. I'll give you a little show here. So let me get positioned here. And all you use, just get a little Dremel, right? A little Dremel or something like this guy right here with a thin cutting disc. That's all you use, a little guy right here. That's all you need. Don't need anything crazy. Get our strobes plugged in here. And make sure that you go back and deburr the cut too. So I'm gonna make a slice, you know, as I was telling you, right here, right there. And then what you want to do is you want to take one of these guys, it's a little drum, sanding drum. You just want to go in there and kind of get rid of the burrs to make sure that you don't have anything catching, because it'll do some damage to the case if you don't. So, yep, let's do this, right? You want to go a little bit of an angle. Kind of like that. And all you want to do is put a little tiny cut right there, and this little guy right there. That's it. So hang on a second. I gotta grab some squints. If I can remember where I put them. Okay, we're back. Eye protection, guys. Having metal in your eye is no fun. Tell you what, these Dremels are kind of like a must-have. I'll go back and deburr this one real quick. Alright guys, so I'm not going to take you through that whole process of every single one. That would probably put you all to sleep. So I'll give you a close-up real quick. So what we're looking for is like this right here. You see that little cut right there? And see what I mean? How it's going to travel oil now from up here that oil never went anywhere, just stayed in this ring. And it's going to force it down to this ring, and that is going to push the oil through this hole, which in turn will go down the push rod and go out into the rocker assembly and lube up everything in the cylinder head. So it's just a good little kind of, you know, extra measure, so to speak. And that's all you want to do. You just want to put a little tiny cut in it. Make sure there's no burrs or anything on it, and clean it up real good before you put it in the motor. And let me get all of these done here, every one of these, because I got 7 more to do, and we'll be right back. All right, guys, I got the lifters all done. I'm going to show you something real quick. These guys here, these are your little O-rings right here, and these are what seals the case at the studs, you know, the main studs, the big ones that hold the case together. So, and down here, and these guys here all go on these studs right here. Step number 1. Put them on ever so gently and seat them all the way at the bottom. There we go. I got everything cleaned up again one more time. You know, like I said before, dust is your like #1 enemy when you're doing an engine. Come on, get on there. We're getting ready to set the bearings here pretty quick. Remember I told you these little dowels here, that's what rotates the bearings. Let me get my center bearing. The center bearing on a Volkswagen motor is a 2-piece. And the other ones are actually fixed and attached to the crankcase. Or not the crankcase, the crankshaft. Yeah, I'm getting tired, guys. So anyways, here's the bearing, your center bearing. That's where the locator pin goes right there, your dowel pin. And that always faces towards the flywheel. So when you go to put this on, line it up the best you can. Sometimes it can be a little bit of a, come on. There we go. What I like to do is take a rubber end mallet, just make sure that she is good and seated. And make sure that it's flat here on the case. You don't have any gaps or anything down here at the bottom. It should be good to go. Let's set our cam bearings. Bearing number 3. And there's a, so on your bearings like this, it's conventional. You see this little tab right here? Okay, you want that to go in this little tab that's right here. I'll show you. Hang on. Trying to explain things to you and you can't even see it. Hang on a second. Oh, sorry. So, where's it at? Right here. See this little tab right here? That is where this little guy, there we go, focus. That's where that lines up to. There we go. Just figured you might want to know. And I usually get them started, and then with 2 fingers, I push them down into place. And make sure that, you know, they're good and seated and level, like I was telling you with the case. Because that can create all kinds of havoc if you don't do that and try to set the camshaft in. You know, you could mar up the bearing or mar up the camshaft, and you're gonna have a bad day. This is the middle bearing, and one thing to notate with Volkswagens, the middle cam bearing is wider than the end cam bearing. The third bearing is narrower because you have a cap that goes back there. So this little guy right here is your cap. It goes back here like this, and it seals up the back of the camshaft on the back of the block. And I don't remember which way it is because there's 2 different ways it can go. One way set in like this. This is probably the way I'm going to do it, because and then if you flip it around the other direction, there's some people that do that. You do that because of the Volkswagen for a little while had an automatic manual, and it's kind of weird. So anyways, it goes in 2 different ways depending on which way, which transmission you're using. And another thing, you want to make sure that the holes on the bearings line up with the oil galleys in the block. So, and then on your front bearing here, you see there's a shelf there on this front cam bearing. That shelf is called a thrust bearing. That's what keeps the camshaft from walking back and forth when it's locked in. And then this little hole right here, you want to make sure that this hole right here is all lined up with the hole in the case. Once again, bigger bearing like that, just tap on it. And always use a non-marring. Don't just grab any hammer. That would make for an interesting conversation. And all you want to do is make sure that she's sitting flush. And now we'll put some assembly lube on this guy right here. I don't know what you guys normally use. I've been using Ultra Slick kind of style. It's real gooey and sticky. It's pretty good. Made by Permatex, not a sponsor. But anyways, I've used this stuff many times, and I've had really good luck with it. So the item number is 81950, and you don't need to put a lot. You just put just a dab like that, and it's all stringy. You take your finger and you spread it out in here. Just like that. Now, there's a kind of a trick to doing these crankshafts. So when you get them in place, I'll show you when I get a little closer here. I'm getting ready to put the crankshaft actually in the motor, but there's a trick to it. You want to ever so gently slide it down in place and then turn the bearings until they line up, you know, with the dowel pins, and then she'll drop into place. And I'll show you how to check that in a second. So these are the crank. There's the dowel pins I was talking about, and you want to get those lined up about where you think they're going to go. And we're going to slide our rear bearing on here. And turn these ever so slightly, like that right there. You saw that one went down into place. That one went in. And that one dropped in. I'm sure, I don't know if you heard the click. You just spin them until they line up in the bearing. And the crankshaft is in place. You should be able to spin it. Yep. Everything's good. Now, what I was telling you about as far as being able to check it, I'll show you why I say this. Make sure it's good and it's in place. Okay, here is that center bearing. I told you it was a split bearing, right? You guys can't even see me. Here's that center bearing right here, okay? Now what you do is you don't put this in the other case yet. You take this and you set it on your crankshaft in the middle there. So say this is the crankshaft, you set it on the crankshaft, and you want to make sure that this bearing doesn't walk or move. If the bearing walks or moves, then the crankshaft is not all the way seated. I'll show you what I mean. So you take the bearing, drop it in place, and see how it moves? That means we're not seated all the way down inside. Just give her a couple of wallops. Might take you a couple of tries. Like I said, it's been a long time since I've done one of these. I think it's this front bearing. See, it was that front bearing. So see how I'm pushing on it now? Yeah, there's no movement. You can't hear any movement or anything. That means that all of these bearings are now seated down in those pins. So we are good to move forward. All right, guys. Don't mind my headlights here. It's so I can see. I'll show you what I have to look at here. So here's the camshaft. Okay, this guy right here. When you go to set the cam timing, there's a little dot. I don't know if you can see it right there, okay? That sits in between two dots that are on the crankshaft. And how you do this is you line it up on the crank gear and then you rotate it without skipping any teeth down into the crank bearings. And then you spin the crank back, and what you're looking for is that this lines up in the middle, right between the other two dots that are on the crankshaft, and that the one dot on the bottom side is below the case half, and that the two dots are above the case half, and this dot is in between those two. Okay, that's what you're looking for. It is extremely crucial that you get the cam timing right, because you don't want to pull it all back apart because, you know, you made a boo-boo. So I just wanted to let you guys know. So we're getting ready. We're going to set the lifters in, and then we're going to walk the camshaft down in there, and then we're going to spin it one more time and make sure everything rotates. Should rotate free if there's no problems. I already cleaned up the lifters and everything, so we're going to put some lube on them and stick them in. And what you want to make sure of is when you put these in, right, you want to make sure that these lifters spin freely, because they have to rotate. If they don't rotate, they'll wear out. It's no good. It's bad news. And lubrication is key on a dry fire up. So the more lubrication, the better. A lot of guys put Volkswagen motors together with nothing but motor oil. You do it however you choose to do it, but that's how I do it. So when you go to put these in, as you see my hand right here, right, 2 fingers, you want to make sure that this thing with 2 fingers like this will move in and out and side to side and rotate. If it does that, you're golden. Go. This down. That's one thing about assembly lube. This stuff is sticky. So anyways, if you guys have any questions or comments or anything, you know, let me know. Leave a comment. You know, give me some likes, guys. Give me some oh, that's nice. Give me some likes. Give me some subs here. We got a lot more coming. I might, I just talked to a guy. I might have another engine job actually on top of the Volkswagen motors. This one will be a little different, Chevrolet. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. And put a little assembly lube on everything else. And when you go to put the camshaft in, make sure that you rub some of this assembly lube on the thrust bearing side that I was talking about. Don't let it go in there dry. You want it to be nice and lubricated. Show you why I had to have the headlights here. So, when you start getting older, little details like this get a little harder to find. So remember, you gotta find that dot and line it up in between the 2 dots. Turn my headlights on here. And how I do that, get down here, and I find, get in here, there's my dot, and I line it up in between the dots first, right? Just like you're seeing. and then we rotate it without skipping a beat. We rotate it down into the cam bearings. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to slightly rotate the camshaft, or the crankshaft, to make sure that we are all lined up. And yes, we are all lined up. We are good. Let's put a little oil on the gears. So that it doesn't create any friction points when we go to spin it. There we go. And now what you want to look for is when you go to spin this, you want to make sure that the camshaft itself doesn't try to cock sideways or lift up or pull or anything like that. You should be able to just spin the motor nice and free, just like this. You notice how the camshaft doesn't move, it's nice and seated, it stays in place. That, guys, is what you are looking for. Next, we got to get everything sealed up and get the two case halves together so that we can actually call it a V-dub motor. So I will bring you back as soon as I get all the sealant on everything. All right, I haven't gotten to the sealant part yet. I wanted to show you guys something. There's a trick to putting these two cases together after you get the sealant on. And I figured I'd show you right now while I'm doing this. So these little guys here, these are from Impy. They're little springs, if you see, and they've got little edges on them. And what these do is, because you have to turn that other side of the case upside down to slide the case over the studs, you know, to get everything seated and locked down into place. These are retainers that hold the lifters in place. Otherwise, you'd put it in place and the lifters would just fall out and wind up on the floor and, you know, bad stuff. So these here, they're real cheap. They're like, I don't know, $10 or something like that. You buy a pair of them online. They're a lifesaver when you're doing Volkswagens. So, I mean, I've made my own out of coat hangers before, but you know, they work in a pinch, but this really is the way to do it. Like I said, Amazon, I think it was like 10 or 12 bucks or something like that. Might even been cheaper, but Impy, and they're lifter holders. And you'll see when I go to put it all together, you'll see that this is what holds the lifters in place, so you can actually drop the other side of the case down over the studs without dropping your lifters out. So I'll show you that in a second. Let me get the sealant on this stuff here and get the lifters in the case, and then yeah, we'll get this little girl all buttoned up here and we'll have us a Volkswagen short block. Be right back. All right, guys. I got a sealant on, as you see behind me, all the way around the case. A nice thin layer on both sides of the case. Should create a good seal. And this is what I chose to go with. Prime Seal. It's Type 3 aviation sealant. It's widely used in the Volkswagen community. It's pretty good stuff, and I think that RTV is good, but I don't know. I just kind of like the old-fashioned style, I guess. Maybe I'm weird. So let's get these two cases mated together, right? Okay. Oh, before I go too fast here, this is the empty bolt kit. So this has all your nuts, your washers, your fasteners, everything to put this engine back together the way you're supposed to. And it's not very expensive. It's worth it when you're doing a new motor. Let's see if I can't manage to drop the lifters, huh? All right. So you see how I have the lifters in there, right? And you can see right there, that's what holds them in place. So let's see if we can't get this mated together. This is the fun part. Seeing it all come together. Oh, come on. Come on, stay. Really? You gonna do this to me? Oh, you turd. Man. Usually you can squeeze the two connecting rods and they stay together. But this one don't want to cooperate. There we go. Give her a few little whapper tappers here. Grab my dead low. You can seat it down. All right, guys. I think we got her. Yeah, like I was saying, it's been a minute since I've done one of these V-dub motors, so. And these, like I said, these guys here, they are a lifesaver when you're doing this. Because I've tried to do it the old-fashioned way, turn it at a 45 and all that, and you still wind up with the lifters falling out. Now let's get her all buttoned down. Grab our hardware. Let's make sure she spins. Oh yeah. Spins nice. Grab our hardware. Okay, so got it together. Got all the hardware on it. Now the big bolts, you're gonna torque them down to 25 foot-pounds in a cross pattern. And then the other ones, the smaller bolts, are 14 foot-pounds. So let's set our torque wrench. 25 foot-pounds, peak torque. We'll start with the bottom one. And I draw them all in to about the same. That one tightened up quick. And now we'll do our final torque. Five. $25. $25. And so on and so forth. That one's good. Just want to double check them. And then a good note to do on this, now that the crank case portion is tightened down, you want to grab a hold of the rods here and make sure that she still spins nice and free, which she does, nice and smooth. And then we'll move on to the small ones, and we'll cross these ones back and forth. Start with the back of the cam. You want to be gentle because you don't want to be pulling the threads out. Wish this engine stands locked. Got one over here. We'll go through and double check them all. Make sure that they're good. After you get them all tight. Alright guys, and just like that, I know it's been probably not the most entertaining video I was trying to do an informative video on this because I haven't done one of those yet, and I figured it might be interesting. So that, guys, is the assembly of a 40 horse short block, and I think tomorrow, maybe tomorrow, I'm thinking that we'll go ahead and I'll get the jugs out and pop the pistons out, and I'll show you guys what I was talking about setting the ring gap and making sure the ring gap is, the piston ring gap is right. And then we'll put them all together, put the studs in the block, and put the jugs and heads and stuff on it on the next video. So thanks for coming by. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Leave some comments and let me know what you think. If you want to see some more stuff like this, or if you want to just, you know, speed through everything like I did prior. But anyways, yeah, leave some comments. Let me know what's going on, and I appreciate, you know, everybody that's given me a subscription and a follow. And you know, I'm really tired, guys. It's like 3 in the morning, so on to the next adventure, right? So anyways, not to make the video long, but I appreciate you guys, and I'll see you on the next video. Have a good one.